because they know this is talking about God. And also the conversation one job. And outside God, one of his advocacy is given with you transforming lives and comedy because living mental illness and just getting under roof with the title of the series. Oh, and with that series and other than Mr. Dave. Welcome, Mr. Dave on Outlook Podcast.
I've still got the music going in my ear, so I wasn't quite on top of that.
Yes, and can you please describe
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Daniel. I really appreciate it. I live with bipolar disorder all my life, and I found I was lost, dark days, lost everything, all the sad things. And then in 2010, I took a stand up comedy class for people with a mental illness. And I learned stand up comedy, learned how to write jokes. Turns out I had an act for it, helped other people write their jokes. And so, taking mental health and it helped me heal. It helped. Talk about healing with humor. That's where it's at. Laughter is medicine, and there is help, there is hope, and there is healing.
there is hope for sure. There is healing. And Mr. Dave, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today let's talk about healing with, mental illness and kind of comedy transforming lives. So tell us, Mr. Dave, can you describe the specific alchemy of taking a deeply painful personal experience with depression and transforming it into a big that gets a laugh?
Yes. It starts with taking one of my hardest experiences. I suffered terrible anxiety disorder, the bipolar, there were ups and downs, but calm in between. But the anxiety took away the calm, and it was awful. So the humor, how to get the humor and find the humor in that is, um, I wrote down, I sat down and I wrote, I have terrible anxiety, and then I go to what's the obvious thing that would come after that, and the obvious thing that would come after that would be I've got terrible anxiety, and I'm miserable, and I'm afraid, and I hide from people. And one of the ways the anxiety manifested was that when I went into a restroom, and anybody else was in there, I couldn't pee. And so that's one of the things that I wrote down is when I go to the restroom and somebody's there, I can't go, and I have to stay outside. So I take, you take those three things and then you look for, okay, which one can turn into humor, which one can turn into humor, which one can I write a joke about. So I chose the one where my anxiety was so bad, and the way it manifested itself was I'd go into a restroom, and if anybody else was in there, I couldn't go. So I'd go outside and wait for 5 minutes or wait half hour, whatever it took before the restroom was empty, and then I'd go in and go. And then I didn't realize things were getting better. But last week, my wife and I went to a movie, and after the movie, I went into the restroom, and there were other people in there, and I went to the urinal, and I went up and I went. And at that moment, I realized how far I'd come. So I stepped back from the urinal and I went, yes, yes, yes. And
Mm.
everybody in the restroom looked at me like I was crazy. And I thought, no, not anymore.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Dave. So
That's
what's the
the
difference between using humor as a mask to hide your pain and using a tool for healing? And how do you learn to tell the difference in your own work?
um, as far as the writing the jokes, or my the difference. First of all, for people, I think people can uh, anybody can learn to write a joke. Anybody can take their hard thing, whether it be I don't know, losing a job, or a dog dying, and that's awful, and it's we mourn, and we but at a certain point we can sit down and we can write. I lost my dog recently, and then you think about the obvious things. So I'm so lonely. I lost my best friend. um, and then I don't have him to talk to anymore. And so then you look at those, and then you try to think about what's the most ridiculous thing that you can come up with. And so it would be the setup would be, last week I lost my dog, and I really miss not being having him to talk to. So I found myself talking to the hot dogs in the fridge. And that's just a silly, silly, silly thing. But what it does is it takes our mind and puts us in a different frame of mind. So the sadness and the loss is not overpowering. And when we think about our dog and whatnot, maybe we'll be able to smile a little bit about it.
Mr. Dave, in the process of writing a joke about your mental health, you have to reframe a traumatic event. Does that the act of reframing for comedic effect actually change your relationship to the memory itself?
Yeah, it's our minds. I believe in plasticity. I think that our minds go in. Um, we create pathways in our brains, and so something we'll see something, it'll make us happy, or we'll hear a song and it'll take us another place, and these pathways exist. And with the darkness and the hard times, and especially depression, when we fall in depression, the pathways in our brains are well worn, and we go to those dark places, and we go to the negative thoughts, and we go to the racing thoughts. And so by finding humor in our experiences, by looking at the dark experiences, and just asking ourselves, where can we find the humor in that? That changes the pathways in the brain and takes us so we're not going to that dark spot, but we're heading in a different direction. And if we do that often enough, then I used to be driving down the street, and I'd hear a song, and it would trigger me. I'd remember a bad experience, a panic attack, a meltdown, some really embarrassing situation, and I'd go to that dark place. And then when I took the stand up comedy class, when I heard that song, I'd think, where can I find the humor in that? And just thinking that changed everything. So instead of hearing that song and going through that to that dark place, I heard the song and I went to, where can I find the humor in that? And then my mind just started thinking of ways that I could make a joke out of it. And the jokes are not self-deprecating. The jokes are, we tell our story one joke at a time, but we don't make fun of ourselves, and we're not self-deprecating. It's humor that's outward, and humor about events.
Okay, Mr. Dave, tell us. Stand up requires an audience. What is the moment like when you share the most vulnerable depression role on stage? and are met with laughter and applause instead of silence or pity. What does communal response do for you?
It does a lot, and fortunately, I've never been met with silence. The and I'm not nervous when I get up on stage, and I've really never been nervous because I like my jokes and I think they're funny. So I get up there and I'm having a good time, and the jokes are laugh out loud funny. So the people in the audience hear it and they get it, and they don't expect mental health humor, and they don't expect me to go to the places that I go. So they laugh and they laugh out loud, and it's it's freeing, it's rewarding, it's healing. And the other thing is that there are people out in the audience that have mental illness. Maybe it's anxiety or maybe it's depression. And so they're hearing me talk about my anxiety and depression, and they're hearing the humor that can be derived from it, and they laugh. And oftentimes they're the people that laugh the hardest, and it makes a difference in other people's lives.
For sure, they will know the big difference. The mechanics of the craft, Mr. Dave. Let's go into the writer's room. How do you take a classic depression rule like you're a burden or nothing matters and workshop it into setup and a punchline? Can you walk us through the anatomy of one joke?
Yes, yes. So the setup, the beginning of jokes are always the real part, the honest part, the true part, and so there's that truism there, and then a setup is a creative part. So you mentioned, somebody being low, and things are awful, and there's nowhere to go, and so where that takes me to, what comes from that naturally comes from that are suicide ideation, thoughts of suicide. So and most people with depression have had thoughts of suicide. And I had a time when I was seriously thinking about suicide, but taking that, um, thinking about suicide, and then finding a funny punchline to it. That's the trick. I'm depressed. I'm so depressed. I'm thinking about taking my own life. So how would I do that? Well, I'd do pills or I'd do other methods. And then so I thought about doing pills and taking pills. And so my joke is one time when things were really, really bad, I decided to end it all. So I went up into the bathroom and I took a bunch of pills. Afterwards, I called my wife for help. She said there are more pills under the sink. I know. I
Well,
know. So
Dave,
how do you make a suicide? How do you make suicide funny, or how do you make a joke about suicide? And
yes.
you know, that's walking through it. That's you know, that's going through the setup is the real part, and then the punchline is just letting your mind go to the creative places and asking those hard questions, like how would I, would I drive into a tree? Would I drive off a cliff? Would I, and okay, where's the humor in that? Where's the humor in driving off a cliff? Um, or jumping off a bridge or taking pills. There's humor. There's humor, and we let our minds go and find the humor. And next time we think about our dark days, our suicide, we go to the joke, and it takes us out of those. It takes changes the pathway in our brain, it takes us out of that depressed suicidal mode, and we think about the humor.
Mr. Dave, timing is everything in
Hmm.
comedy. How do you find the right timing to talk about mental illness without triggering the audience or making them too uncomfortable to laugh?
Yeah, that's really important, and that really is, a very important part of stand-up comedy. You don't want to talk too fast because the audience doesn't have enough time to grasp what you're saying, what the setup is, what the punchline is. So you need to have pace and tell it at a pace that people have time to absorb. And then before you tell the punchline, you need to take a beat or maybe two, because if you tell the setup and then rush into the punchline, that's called stepping on your joke, and you're not giving the audience time to have that just beat, that maybe 1 second or 2 seconds to process the punchline, and then that's time to absorb that, and then to hear the setup, and then that gives them just that moment to hear the punchline, get the punchline, um, and then you pause and you let the audience laugh. You don't go right into the next joke, and so it's almost like there's a cadence, and that's one of the most important things that I teach when I'm teaching stand-up comedy is teaching pace, teaching the cadence, and teaching the timing. Um, Everybody can learn it, but it's not innate necessarily. Sometimes we get in a hurry. Sometimes we talk too slowly. So if but watch. I recommend. I watch comedians. Watch a YouTube channel with a comedian on it, or watch a stand-up comic show, and you'll get a sense for the timing. And and if you watch it and you get that sense and you pay attention, then one can get the timing on their own. But timing is so important. You can have the best jokes in the world, but without timing, nobody's going to laugh, and nobody will even hear the jokes. And they'll have that anxiety for you because they can see you melting down on stage.
Mr. Dave, as an author and transforming lives by teaching stand-up comedy, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
I'm working on another book. I'm actually OMG. That's Me 3 is about the stand-up comedy and the transformation that has happened in people's lives. And I'm working on a workbook called Healing Through Humor, where I go through kind of what we're talking about and I lay it out step by step by step, so people can get the workbook and they can go in and they can um, look for the setups. They can list the things that are challenging them. They can. Um, I have. I have. The program where people can go through and then they can go through and write down the real things and the punchlines, and so it's really a workbook on how to. And so it's going to be how to healing through humor, how to face our dark times and talk honestly about them, but then how to find the humor in those experiences. And then once we find the humor, how to share that humor, how to live that humor. Um, so yeah, I'm working on that workbook. That's my goal. I know it's going to help a lot of people. I know, OMG, that's me selling, over 17,000 copies. The response is, OMG, that's me. You're telling my story. I don't feel so alone now. So I know there's a need for having a way to look at ourselves and our challenges with humor. And so that's what I'm going to do with the workbook, which will be called Healing Through Humor.
Good luck to your goals,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dave, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
I think, I faced darkness, homelessness, hard times, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and negative thoughts, and all those things. And I came out the other side with the help of humor. So I think look for the humor in your times. And again, you're not making fun of yourself, but look for the humor. And it doesn't come to start. It doesn't start. You can do it over and over and not find it. But eventually you'll find the humor in some of your experiences. Um, so, think about it. Watch a stand up comic on TV. Come up, try to write some of your own jokes, with the first part being your truth and your honesty, and the second part being really creative and trying to be silly and funny. The sillier you can be, the better. So that's what I'd say to people. And then who knows? Maybe you'll have a talent for it, and you can go out and do open mics and perform on stage. And if you like your own jokes, then odds are that other people are going to like them too.
Well, thank you for that advice, Mr. Dave. And tell us, if the depression rules are the problem, what is the rule or principle of a comedy that acts as its most powerful antidote?
We fear our depression, and we fear our anxiety. We we go through so many things in our heads, and getting the comedy and gets us out of our heads, which is where we need to be. We need to be out of our heads, and we need to be looking for, I can't say looking forward. Everybody's in their different place, and of darkness with depression or coming out of it. Um, but we can find that balanced spot, and we can recognize our depression for what it is, and we can recognize our anxiety for what it is, and it doesn't have to control us. And I call it, accept our. I tell people, accept your mental illness. We have mental illness. I have mental illness. Accept your mental illness, uh, but don't do acceptance without resignation. Don't resign yourself to always being in this spot, because you won't. Life goes on, opportunities come up, fun things happen, and yeah, there is hope.
Mr. Dave, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season. Abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 review, Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever
I
you
will.
listen your podcast. So, Mr. Dave, finally, what is the ultimate transformation you hope occurs both for you on a stage and for someone in the audience when you share a joke born from a place of deep darkness?
My hope is that when I tell my suicide joke on stage, and my hope is that person that's out on the stage that has had the suicidal thoughts, that they hear the joke, and the next time they think about suicide, instead of thinking about how or where or what, they think of the joke and they get a smile on their face. The same thing with the anxiety and the other darkness. That's my hope. And it shatters for families, for other people that don't live with mental illness. Telling my story one joke at a time shatters stigma, And so those are the two things: making a difference in somebody's life that is out there living with it and in the middle of the darkness, and for other people to see that, someone with mental illness can stand up, can tell their story one joke at a time, and can laugh. And there is hope, and there is help, and there is healing.
There is hope and there is healing too, Mr. Dave. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah. Check out Amazon for the other books. I'm performing from time to time, and hey, good luck to everybody in the future, and I hope they have healing and hope as I have.
Yes, people love support Mr. Dave and Dave because it is the question more knowledge to be done, more empowerment. Look at this one. Mr. Dave, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More fun people, see you soon.